very special episode of Damage Rolls. It is a very special nerd holiday, and we're about to get into that in just a moment. But before we get into that, I'm Mr. Producer, and of course, always with me, we have the fabulous Chef Bolg
That's me.
and the wonderful Loke the Bard.
May the Schwartz be with you.
Wrong series, wrong series. We're gonna get sued, cease and desist for merchandising. Um, it is May the
What's
4th.
that?
A very, very prestigious nerd holiday among the circles we run in. Uh, as always, Disney does some special events for May the 4th. This year they dropped the new Tales of the Empire. Did you have a chance to watch that this morning?
I did not. I've kind of given up a lot on the Disney Plus shows. Um, I don't even have it set up for streaming anymore at the moment because I've been so disappointed with the last couple.
Right.
Um, I'm debating whether when the Acolyte comes, that might be when I set things back up again. Depends
Okay.
on the reviews I hear. I'm actually going to wait for reviews of the Acolyte before I make that decision. That's how bad Star Wars has gotten in the Disney Plus era for me.
Okay, interesting. What say you, Bold?
I also did not get a chance to watch it. I was a little busy this morning. As you can see, I'm not in my usual setup. I'm elsewhere. I'm looking after my dad's dog, but I was also doing things this morning. Uh, I do intend to watch it. It's been on my list, but um, just life.
We got you, bud. Well, I have a fucked up sleep schedule and I love Star Wars, so I was up till the early hours of the morning watching Tales of the Empire. And I'll be honest, I had some mixed feelings on it. I'll try to. There is a spoiler warning at the top of the screen here, but I'll try not to get too into detail for my fellow co-stars here. Um, it's 6 episodes long. They're 10 to 20 minutes each. It follows two different storylines. One of the storylines follows Morgan Elsbeth. You guys might remember her. She was introduced in the Ahsoka show. It shows kind of her upbringing and it establishes lore for her.
Actually, she was introduced in The Mandalorian.
That is right because they have a scene in her compound.
Yeah.
I recall, and she's got her big metal spear. Um, so yeah, she was introduced in The Mandalorian, and the second set of 3 episodes follows. I believe Baroness was her name. She was a character from the Clone Wars shows who was a. I forget exactly what her role was, what her active crimes were, but she was imprisoned by the Jedi, and the show kind of picks up right after Order 66 happens, and it takes her story. It takes her story from there. Um, I really liked the second set of episodes. The Baroness episodes I thought were really well done. I like the Morgan Elsbeth episodes, but she never was really my favorite Star Wars character. But to just kind of wrap this up, I really enjoyed the Tales of Empire. I think the animation team for the studio is fantastic. As Luke was just saying, the Disney era Star Wars has had its highs and low points. Um, I'd say this was a pretty mid range one, but I was always a fan of the Star Wars animation shows. The Clone Wars, I watched that growing up, and I've only seen them get better. Um, where do you guys stand on the animated Star Wars? Bulk.
Um, well, I starting back with the Clone Wars. I really liked the Clone Wars series. I watched Bad Batch. I think just finished, and it was really good.
Yes, I need to finish the
Um,
third season. I've watched the first two.
Rebels was fine for being like a kid show. Um, really, the high point for me has been Visions. Both seasons of Visions have been extremely good. Um, other than that, I think I've touched on most of the animated stuff other than like the 80s Ewok TV show
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
that m- I watched as a kid, but
Mhm.
And
I've
I
been
I am
enjoying
the
it.
opposite perspective here. I attempted to watch the Clone Wars
Yes.
and found it too childish.
You watched
Um,
just the first season, correct?
just the first season,
Okay.
yes.
Well,
And I've heard it gets better, and I've heard if you skip the filler episodes and blah, there it has a strong fan base. I've come to the conclusion I am not the target audience.
Mhm.
Um, I am actually the audience that the current Star Wars seems to want to get away from. Yeah, I am.
The
Despite my
original Star Wars fans.
yeah, despite my youthful appearance, I'm the old man of the show. And I grew up on the original Star Wars. And the only one that I was too young to see in the theater was the original one. And
Okay.
my parents probably took me to that, but I was, a babe in arms at the
Yes.
time. But I always, from my earliest memories, had a VHS tape of the original Star Wars. you know, so that, and when I was playing with toys as a little kid, it was playing with the original Ken Kenner Star Wars action
Mhm.
figures. Um, so I'm of that generation, which for whatever reason, instead of encouraging us to embrace a lot of the Star Wars and pass it on to our children, they seem to want to skip us and go to our children.
Directly, right.
You're right. Well, but they seem to want to skip us, and it's not even our children; it's the generation between my generation and my children, which would, I guess, be you guys. Is
Mhm.
the Clone Wars generation?
Yes.
They seem to want the Clone Wars generation to be the target audience of just about everything.
I'm Do you have a
Well,
specific
the
example
prequel,
that you're referencing?
prequel, the prequel stuff. It's just like the little thing, like how many of these things that you've seen take place? Like there are things they could do between the Empire and Jedi, for example.
Mhm.
There were large extended universe novelizations that took place in that period.
Mhm.
The period between when Luke leaves, or I mean, when the Falcon leaves Hoth
Mhm.
to when it arrives in Cloud City, is calculated to be at least a year and a half.
Okay.
So there's a gap there that they could fill with all kinds of zany adventures, you know,
True.
because the original trilogy, it may seem when you're watching that it all happens back to back to back, but it doesn't. The original Death Star is blown up in the first movie and is almost completely rebuilt by the third movie, bigger and better.
I
There is
think
a lot of time between those events.
I think
That,
something may have been lost in communication. I was referencing the targeting of the younger
well,
generation.
that's what I'm saying. Is
Okay.
everything's clone? They spend a lot of times with Clone War prequels
Mhm.
and in filling in the gap between Clone Wars and the original trilogy. They're not filling any gaps. They skipped everything involving the original trilogy other than Vader, because they'll bring the Vader stuff in
Mhm.
because he's popular. But they pretty much skip everything else involving that original trilogy, and it's either everything is after the original trilogy or before the original trilogy. Nothing happens at the same time. Nothing happens,
Okay.
with side character. I mean, there are so many side characters that they could fill in gaps with from the original trilogy that would be just as interesting as some of this Clone Wars stuff or post original trilogy stuff
I
that they just
I
don't
mean,
do.
yeah,
I
imagine
Go
like
ahead.
a Game of Thrones type scenario with the battle, like how Lando got in control of Cloud City.
Yeah,
That would
that's
be
just one
an excellent
example.
thing.
Easy. There is nothing from Lando from the time he loses the Millennium Falcon in a card game in Solo till he shows up again in Cloud City.
So I to play devil's advocate, the issue I could potentially see with something like that is when you are the first three movies, 4, 5, and 6, are so I don't want to. I'm blanking on the word. It's not idolized, but held to such prestige that if they started tinkering with some of the actual like lore within that set of time, there I could see fan backlash.
Yeah.
But
they do that now with what the way that the Clone Wars cartoon changes the character of Anakin versus what is shown in the movies.
That's fair. They do use Vader.
Yeah. I mean, the creation of new characters such as Ahsoka who survive Order 66.
And bringing back characters who we thought were dead. Now, I will defend that to the end of time. Maul has his place in the Clone Wars. But that, yeah, new characters, Asajj Ventress, she was a fan favorite, and now she's got her own thing going on in the Bad Batch. But I think, well, we can break it down actually pretty easily. Loke just told us exactly what went on with him. He was born right around when the first movie came out.
Yeah.
For me, the first bit of Star Wars media that came out when I was a kid was Episode 1.
Y'all want to feel real old? The first
Yeah,
Star
I was
Wars
about
I
to
was
ask.
able to comprehend was Revenge of the Sith. We have a family picture of all of us, my dad and us three boys sitting down watching, Revenge of the Sith is, the title card, and that was like the first. I was like, oh shit, this is really cool.
Yeah. See, and I'm also like in between the original trilogy and Episode 1. The thing that kept the fandom alive was the extended universe.
The books, right?
Well, yeah, there were tons of books and comic books and video game stuff that was considered canon by George Lucas's company. That when Disney bought everything, they declared it all no longer canon as like a Elseworlds or a parallel, and that they call the extended universe. Timothy Zahn's Heir to the Empire, which is where Grand Moff Tarkin, you know who I'm trying to
Thrawn?
say. Thrawn. That's who I meant to say. General Thrawn actually comes from Timothy Zahn's books, and they've recanonized him.
That was Heir to the Empire, correct?
Yeah, Heir to the Empire. There was, I believe, the first book is the last, or the last book is the Last Command. I can't remember. It's been so long since I read the trilogy, but it was a trilogy of books that took place right after Return of the Jedi, when they were first trying to reestablish the New Republic. And it's Luke's wife is involved. Myra Jade was a very popular character that they've not recanonized yet.
I'm sorry, who was
the
that?
rumor mill has it she's gonna be introduced as Luke's wife at some point for the new Daisy Ridley trilogy.
Yeah, you can tell
Filoni
and the other one. Oh man, I need
Jon
Favreau.
Favreau, yeah, you can tell Filoni and Favreau were fans of the extended universe.
Oh,
because they are. There is an active thing in their TV shows and movies where they are actively trying to recanonize things that Disney erased, which I applaud them for. But like there's so much there that they could have mined for good stories.
So when Disney purchased Star Wars, did they acquire all the rights to the EU?
Yeah, more or less.
And they,
depends on it depends on the individual author's contracts, how much they owned of their,
gotcha.
they purchased the authority to canonize or decanonize anything they wanted.
They had so
and that's
much.
not to say they're not all good.
Mhm.
There because there was a certain requirement of maintaining the status quo that most of them had to follow. Like you couldn't really amp up the drama because you couldn't really make changes because it wasn't your sandbox.
Right.
It was Lucas's sandbox in case he ever wanted to make more in.
Mhm.
The exception seems
Like you
to be
couldn't blow up Tatooine.
Yeah, like I believe the only mainline character. Spoiler alert for anybody intending to start the EU. I believe the only mainline character who dies is Chewbacca, and like the author had gotten special permission, and he did such a bad job with it that I don't think anybody else ever got more permission
That is so
to
so
kill
just,
off a character.
just to sidetrack real quick, like that is a movie trope that I have, I'm at my wit's end with the a character's dead, and it's like, oh no, there's a sorrow scene, and then less than 5 movie minutes later, it's like, oh, they're alive, and
Yeah.
we've seen it with Chewbacca, we saw it with in Shazam. I was watching the Shazam 2. They pulled that exact stunt, and it's just
No,
if
they
you're-
actually killed Chewbacca in the
Yeah.
in one of the books. He, I believe, is the only character that is not a
I-
book original character.
like I want character death to have meaning again.
Yeah.
That's something I thought Game
If
of
I were
Thrones
to
did
write-
really well.
Yeah.
Even Jon Snow they brought fucking Jon Snow back, but there's other characters that stay dead, but I just want screen death to mean something.
If I were allowed to write a movie, I would have a character death, have that moment of sorrow, have them come back, and then have them be like vaporized, where there's no chance of them coming back, as like a moment of black comedy. But because that is a trope that does piss me off a lot. Like it's Marvel syndrome. Nobody stays dead.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Even
Nobody
Wolverine
stays
is
dead.
back from the dead.
I don't like the fake out deaths, and I don't like the resurrection trope either.
Yes.
So,
There's
Except for Optimus Prime.
Again,
Optimus Prime in the original Gen 1, when he died in the movie because they were trying to sell new toys, and then they brought him back in a TV series movie. That's the only resurrection one that was ever good.
Okay.
when they brought back Maul, at least it made a little sense because lightsabers are really hot. Cut him in half, it cauterized the wound. He survived the fall by using the Force, saying that Luke did, and Bespin, plausible.
Yeah.
But
The
if
medical
their head's
technology of
blown off
Star
and they
Wars
come
is
back,
there.
Wasn't Chewbacca? They're like, oh, he takes off in the ship, and then they pan over, and Chewbacca's on a sand dune or something.
Yeah, in the sequel trilogy, they did a fake out.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, in the extended universe, they crush him with a moon crashing into a
Oh
planet.
my god! They threw a moon
Yeah.
at Chewbacca.
It's something. Don't quote me on that, but it's something that ridiculous.
Okay.
Where
Okay.
literally needs a Thanos level threat to kill him.
yeah, and then like I said, that was so bad that they never approved anybody else to kill anybody else.
Gotcha.
So that was actually something I don't know if we want to save this for the end of the episode or what, but I was kind of wanting to go through each of the mainline movies and give them a ranking of 0 to 10.
Okay.
Oh yeah. We might be able to do that at the end. Let me see. All right, I'm gonna mess around with the stream a little bit to see if I can pull up a spreadsheet for that or something, just so we have it all in one place. I wanted to touch, backtracking a little bit, on Loke's comment about, directing towards the younger generation.
It's not necessarily the younger generation. It is it's younger than me, but it is the prequel generation that they seem to be and there's a lot of policy things where you can see where the Star Wars land what is it? The Galaxy's
Galaxy's Edge.
Most of those focus on the prequel characters.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you know, somebody may have done the math. My generation's getting old. I am at the younger end of the original
OGs.
trilogy audience. You know, the ones who were 10 years old when the original Star Wars came out are getting ready to hit retirement age here. You know,
Yes,
it's getting so in that way. I guess it kind of makes sense to focus on the 30-year-old audience instead of the 50, 60-year-old audience, money wise. And the first of the sequel trilogy, the Force Awakens ones, did a good job of the member berries for those original trilogy fans as well.
So
unfortunately they didn't hold to that through the rest of the series.
I think
Right,
they
which
are
is why I
trying.
kind of want to do this ranking.
Yeah.
Because I think I'm going to have a very big difference on the next one compared to you guys.
So episodes 1 through 9, Rogue One, and Solo. Am I missing any?
Mainline movies.
I think
the Star Wars
we're,
Holiday Special.
Yeah, I wasn't. I thought that was a.
It's
we don't
a zero.
talk about that.
That's not a mainline movie. That's TV still. So if we're not putting Mandalorian and those kind of things in there, we're not putting the holiday special.
Yeah, we're just.
Okay.
I think we'll just do the movies this time around.
Okay.
But back to what I was trying to say. I think that Star Wars is still trying to capture. I think what Loke has been referencing is, people that are kind of in my age bracket having kids. That's what you're focusing. I think they're trying to get kind of some of my generation back because they are kind of upping some of the darkness and brutality in the series that attracts certain fans.
Yeah. When they say they're upping it, in the original Star Wars, 3PO is burning Luke's relatives' bodies.
Mm.
There's always been a darkness to Star Wars.
Right. But with the Disney era, there was a lot of we got Rebels, which is a younger focus.
There's a lot of cartoony.
Even with some of the prequels, there's just stuff they could have done a step further without crossing a line that they pulled back for a more general audience. But and real quick, spoiler alert for Tales of the Empire. There's I'll have to tell you guys too. There's a scene where they are training an Inquisitor, and the final test for the two Inquisitors is they have to kill the other trainee, and that is how they ascend to Inquisitor level, and it's fairly brutal. They're trapped in a pit that with a closing force field. It's kill the other or you both die, and it's pretty dark for Disney era Star Wars, in my opinion. Do you guys have another idea on that?
Well, I will agree that when Disney took over, they got rid of a lot of the projects that were in the works that were darker. Was Star Wars 1313 was going to be an M-rated game focused on young Boba Fett.
Mm-hmm.
That looked like it was going to be amazing, and they just shut it down because it was M-rated.
Right.
And
there's also the other side. Rogue One and Andor are also Disney era, and
yeah,
so
go ahead.
So are Jedi Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor, which both feature some pretty brutal moments in terms of combat.
Yeah, I think it's more that there's
in half.
It's what's the word? The bipolarness of it. That it's either all for kids or it's all for adults. There is no the blend that always made Star Wars before is kind of
Yeah, it's missing that adventure feel.
yeah.
I think that's what
Because like
Mandalorian captured very well in the first season. Was you went very space western, and they had they gave us Grogu as like a plot device, and you know merchandising just does really well. And now we have a Mandalorian and Grogu movie instead of just focusing on just the Mandalorian and giving us his space cowboy stories. We now they figure that, in my opinion, Grogu sold a shit ton of merch, so now it's Grogu is just as an established character as the Mandalorian.
I will say that Rocket League just released a skin for one of the cars that is, it's got the color scheme of Mando's ship. It's got the color scheme of Boba's ship. But way before that, you had a floating Grogu. Way before that. So Grogu is definitely the merchandise central part of the Star Wars universe right now. You can't go into Disney Springs or Galaxy's Edge without Grogu being thrust down your throat. And I'll be honest, I've never been really of a fan. Baby Yoda can go fuck off.
You have anything to add, Luke?
Well, see, and that goes to the target audience thing again. I believe the Baby Yoda was to bring young girl fans, like little, not, like minor children, young girl, not young women, young girl, literally fans. Where they're giving them a baby doll in the Star Wars universe in the hopes that they grow up into Star Wars fans at a later date.
No, let's just, create strong female characters that they have something to look up to.
Don't be ridiculous, Bulk.
Really, how dare I ask for
Disney, the land of princesses. Come on.
Touche.
But yeah, I think that's where the Grogu, and they've left off, where the collector merchandise for the old folks, the starship models that people want instead of there is Din's ship and Ahsoka's ship. How many other new ships have we seen in any of those Star Wars products recently?
There's
that are memorable.
There was a Dick
most of them are rehashes
of
most of them are rehashes of old either prequel or original trilogy ships. That's not going to sell new
ties
toys.
Or just
That's just going to bring the value down for the collectors who had those ships on the first release. Now, if they re-release those ships again in the new packaging, all of a sudden those values of those old ships come down.
I have some Legos I have to go through. I want to see if I have any of the, an old Anakin Skywalker that might be worth some money. Because I was getting these Lego sets in 2005, 2006, as a kid. So I'm gonna see if I have any of those rare minifigs.
No. Yeah, and that's the thing Disney doesn't seem. When they're doing these things, part of the genius of the original series was the tie-in they did so well. They get credit for doing Baby Yoda, but I think that's the exception that proves how badly they're doing with everything else, rather than the proof of how good they're doing
overall.
Because you would think, okay, the little action figures apparently are not the popular thing they were when I was a kid. But there are things out there, video games, for example.
Funko Pops, Legos,
Pokemon
Legos
type cards. Really well. Where the Lego sets, but you don't see them doing the good tie-ins that they used to. It's more like they tie in something and it's the assumption it's going to be, you're going to buy it because it's Star Wars. They're not making something cool and then creating the toy set to match it.
Mhm.
It's they're repackaging something in a new way, and hey, you already bought this before, buy this again.
Yeah, I can see
Which-
that.
Yeah.
Um,
And how long has it been now since we've had a new Star Wars theatrical movie? Are we at 5 years now?
is it 5? Episode 9. Yeah, they really leaned into the TV aspect of it, the streaming
Yeah.
aspect of it with COVID. Episode 9 was 2019. You were right on the money, Loke. Almost a
Yeah.
little under 5 years.
Yeah.
But a long time.
Yes.
Yeah, for a franchise they spent $4 billion to buy.
You want to know what I think the stupidest marketing decision in probably the history of marketing decisions was? Putting the entirety, like a pivotal lore point for your Star Wars movie in Fortnite.
Yeah.
Do you guys know about that?
Yeah, the Emperor returning.
Yes, the entire lore of how, oh yeah, Palpatine is back was released in Fortnite instead of, I don't know,
And then in the movie, it's
In
a
the
line,
movie.
somehow Palpatine returned.
like that's it's become such a meme, but like I can't believe that's a line. Like
Yeah.
that
Somehow.
somehow.
Yeah.
I believe there's a comic series that's going to explore that soon here,
Well,
and
for a long-
expound upon it.
it looked like The Mandalorian was going to head that way at one point, but then it decided to get sidetracked with the reclaiming of Mandalore.
Well, you guys know the golden rule: thou shall be sidetracked by bullshit.
Yep.
Yeah, I
Just
believe
finished
that
that.
Filoni and Favreau are doing their damnedest to make it make sense. Give us reasons for why how Palpatine returned. They're working within a certain set of parameters that is not an easy task, but I'm curious to see if they'll further explore that. But they've given us little cookie crumbs of cloning system, and they're trying to get Grogu for his midichlorians. So we'll see if anything what further develops of that. I would almost like them. Luke was saying that year and a half between the Hoth and Cloud9, or is it what's the name?
Cloud City.
Cloud City. I'm optimistic for the Acolyte because I want to move away from the Skywalker saga at some point.
I am optimistic based on the trailer that they released. I am not optimistic based on the post-Disney acquisition novelizations.
Okay.
I like the idea of you go back to the peak of the Jedi era and you get away from the problem, because part of the problem that they have post Return of the Jedi is in the original canon it was intended that Luke was the last surviving Jedi, and Sith too for that matter. That he was the very last one, and then the EU went off and he created his new Jedi Order to repopulate new Jedi into the world.
Mhm.
There was no Ahsoka. There was no what's the guy from Jedi Survivor?
Cal.
Yeah. There was no Cal. There were not these other Jedi running around, that survived Order 66.
Right.
He was truly the last one and was rebuilding from there. The problem when you do that and you're trying to write other stories, the thing that makes Star Wars different from other sci-fi is the Force and the Jedi. So they want to include Force and Jedi's, but you can't do that if there's only one. Yeah.
Right. Well,
So
so
that's where it's nice that when they go back to the old Republic or the High Republic or whatever they're calling it these days, where there's hundreds of Jedi's, they can then tell a story where there is a Jedi involved, and it doesn't have to be your main character. It could be the bad guy,
yeah,
But
I would love
there's a
some.
Jedi, the Force is involved somehow.
I would love there. Do we have any kind of villain-centric Star Wars movie? I know we have some arcs in the Clone Wars, but I don't
Yeah.
think anyone has had.
No, I think I think I mentioned it back when we were Pop Culture Galley, but there's a really interesting, and they just showed it. I forget which series showed it, but there's a really interesting concept in a book where there was some kind of force virus that was returning stormtroopers from the dead, and they were attacking others. Basically, they're zombies, but with guns. And I think it would be really interesting to have maybe even a short film, a horror movie short film about this kind of virus, taking over a platoon of stormtroopers with like a Inquisitor at the helm.
Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, I'm working on the spreadsheet, so I'm a little.
Well, the one thing that has me nervous when they're doing these, new out of era things is Disney tends to want to give Jedi's more wizardly powers than the Force was originally. And I think that's part of the problem with the sequel trilogy, where they're grabbing things across space and time using the Force. And,
Yes.
Yes, and before they could speak mind to mind at a distance, they could move objects with their mind. In the extended universe, there were some Force healing stuff. But I think Disney wants to make them more standard wizards instead of
Well, that's
the
something
separate thing that Jedi have always been.
I wanted to discuss that because, if you remember from Ahsoka, Morgan Elsbeth, she reigns from Dathomir,
Mm-hmm.
which is the witches of the Star Wars universe, and it sounds weird to say this, in a film where people can manipulate things with their mind, but the magical aspect of Star Wars that we've seen from like the Witches of Dathomir, just I'm not sure how I feel about that aspect of it.
Yeah.
Because
It's the Force. They're just using it in a different way.
Right.
This is still the Force that they
It is still the Force. Yeah, they are harnessing its energy in a completely different manner, which is where a lot of the differing powers come from. Like, why can someone use Force lightning using negative energy, but not positive energy? Well, they're just harnessing the Force in a different way. That's why there's a difference between Jedi and Sith powers.
Gotcha. Okay, well, since we're on the topic, have they established midichlorian lore? Because from my understanding, I'm a little messed up with it, because I thought with the establishment of the prequels, only the midichlorians sensitive children were able to use the Force, but with Ahsoka, they had Sabine Wren be able to use the Force. So
well, my understanding is everybody has midichlorians.
Okay.
Because the midichlorians are in every living thing.
Okay.
The difference is the count that the Jedi set a bar that to be over, you needed over 1,000 midichlorians per blood cell or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
The number was. They set a level that at that point you are sensitive enough that training was worthwhile.
Gotcha.
So
Yeah.
with
The Metachlorians was a bad idea. A bad um test for it was a quick, easy test that they instilled to see who would be worthwhile training, who would be force sensitive enough to be able to casually use the force. Because everybody in the Star Wars universe is able to use the force if they know how to tap into it. Because it goes through everyone and everything.
right. But
It's just the level of training is for somebody who has lower metachlorians would be much more intense than someone who has a high number.
right,
Would you
and
guys
it
say?
was supposed to also affect like their strength with, like, a person. There's a big difference between having enough foresight to dodge a shot taken at you, or being able to predict, the path through hyperspace or something,
Mhm.
much more complicated, much more
Would
higher, requiring a higher power level, um, or
You need Mentats for that.
just like you know Luke not being able to lift his uh, X-wing out of the swamp, and Yoda being able to. Uh, that was not supposedly just the fact that Yoda was a master, better trained. He was also supposed to be, higher metachlorian count to.
I mean, the only time Luke did it was when he was dead and part of the Force.
Yeah.
So,
so I have kind of a
And that's the
philosophical
other thing with
question.
metachlorian. The problem with metachlorians is also the ghost factor.
Yes, yes.
Ghosts don't have metachlorian.
I have kind of a
at that point, they're
philosophical
all metachlorians.
question. You know, as the meme goes, are we the bad guys? Would you guys say Jedi's are the good guys?
No, I wouldn't say they're the bad guys either.
Right. Because at their core, they're a religious. You know, they call themselves peacekeepers, but they're a religious group that goes around and
They are
abducts
they
children
are
from
the
different
Templars.
galaxies.
Yeah, they're the Knights Templar.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, which, in the early days of the Knights Templar, they were, protecting pilgrims.
Mhm.
In the later days of the Knights Templar, they're bankers.
Gotcha.
Big difference in same organization, same stated goals. Big difference in what they actually were.
Interesting.
All right. This is another avenue we as viewers and writers as writers could explore. How did they come to be? Why did the Jedi Order be? Why was it founded? Why are there Sith? Why wouldn't they all just be Force users?
That
Yeah,
could be
and
cool to explore.
the extended universe used to have stories that they could draw on that, told of those things, of, where who founded the Jedi Order originally, when the Jedi and the Sith split. And there is all that history out there from the extended universe, but none of it is canon any longer in the Disney Star Wars universe.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's where you get tricky, because if now none of that's canon and they decide to go and make that into something that's completely different than was in the extended lore, you're gonna get the extended lore people who are going to be very unhappy with any changes to that, because they hold all that kind of stuff dearly. But a lot of the way they do things, that they're going to want to make it something different. And it's not like, I know a lot of people say, well, yeah, but that's the same as like Marvel Comics. The Marvel comic book stories are different than the Marvel Cinematic Universe stories, and people aren't bothered by it. The difference is that in Marvel, there is a lot of parallel stories already. Star Wars, up to the Disney takeover, had a single continuity.
Yes.
And any extended universe book had to be approved by
Lucasfilm.
I don't think it was Lucasfilm. It was Skywalker. It was the branch of Lucasfilm that dealt with the ownership.
Skywalker Media.
Yeah, Skywalker Media or whatever it was that dealt with print publishing, but they had to approve anything that was written
There's
before
a
it got
Skywalker
published.
farm,
And
isn't there? Like
he has the Skywalker Ranch was
Oh.
Lucas's, George Lucas's ranch where he lived.
that'd be cool to go see.
Yeah.
Well, we are closing in on our final 15 here, and I do have a rankings list pulled up.
All right.
So I have all three scores, and we will get a mean score of the film from the three of us after we have inputted all of the scores. So, Bold, we're gonna start from the chronological beginning with episode 1.
Now, are we ranking these? We're giving each one a 1 to 10 score, or are we ranking these in the order of where we find them overall?
Let's just give it a standard 1 to 10 because I don't have the patience or the setup for
For a tier list.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, for a tier list. We could do a tier list in order on a follow-up episode, but I think for now we're just gonna give it 1 to 10 based on. I'll let you guys set your own parameters for how you want to score it, but 1 to 10 on where you think it stands.
Yeah, I think a personal ranking is fine because this is.
Yeah, I just
basically
wanted to know which way
Yes.
to give my answer.
Okay. Yeah.
Either way works for me. I just didn't want to.
Yeah, I think
So,
we're good to
if
go.
we're
So judge it
if
how
we're
you
starting at
seem fit. We are starting at episode 1. Bo, give us
So-
give us a quick snippet in your score.
I'm gonna go by how I feel now, not when I was a kid. Because as a kid, a lot of the shit that went on in episode 1 flew right over my fucking head. But as an adult, I've actually come to appreciate some of the slower moments of episode 1, so that the action stands out so much more. We got some killer lightsaber battles, and probably one of the best pieces of music in the entire Star Wars canon with Battle of the Fates. I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10.
7 out of 10 for
Yeah,
Bo.
Duel of Fates, yeah.
I am deducting a point for Jar Jar, deducting a point for Metachlorians, and deducting a point for the decision to use a different Anakin in one movie opposed to the other two. But yet keep Padme the same actress. So that would make it a 7, and then I'm gonna give it drop it down to the 6 for the disappointment factor.
So it's a 6
After
from-
so long between the original trilogy and a new trilogy, I was disappointed with episode 1.
Gotcha. I have mixed feelings on the Phantom Menace. On one hand, we have we got Liam Neeson as Qui-Gon Jinn, who he just kills it. We got introduced to Ian McGregor, fantastic. The Anakin decision to change that going forwards, I'll give it to you. Perhaps the continuity of one actor would have been better, but they were trying to age him up a little, so I understand a recast.
Or have a younger actress play Padme.
That could have worked too.
Yeah.
I love
The
Duel
Child
of Fates.
Empress.
If I'm feeling an orchestral piece of music, that is definitely my go-to. John Williams has just done some fantastic work. I'm gonna go with Bold for the 7. I think 7 is a solid score. It's not the best that the series has to offer, but I think it does a good job at a starting place for new fans if they are the type of viewer that goes 1 to, they'll only go 1 to 9. So I'm gonna give it a 7 as well, which would bring our mean score to 6.666 repeating. On to episode 2, Attack of the Clones. Yeah, that's the right name.
Yeah, Attack of the Clones.
Attack of the Clones. Bulk, it's on you.
Did you guys know, as fellow lovers of D&D, did you know that the novelization was written by none other than Bob Salvatore, the writer of the D&D Forgotten Realms books
Really?
with Drizzt? Yeah, I would have given that version a 6 out of 10. I'm giving Attack of the Clones a 4 out of 10.
4 out of 10 from Bulk.
There are good ideas, terribly executed. Christopher Lee as Dooku, very good choice, underutilized.
Yes.
We only got to see him in the last act, so and then to make him go out like a punk bitch. Yeah. So, 4 out of 10.
4 out of 10 from
Yeah.
Bulk.
Yeah, this is the memed about sand getting everywhere drama movie that they did. It should have been a angsty romance of some kind, but it wasn't. It was just terribly flat, terribly. This could have been the Game of Thrones of the Star Wars, because this should have been the most political, but they didn't think out things like, okay, why is a 16-year-old now the senator of who the ex? Let me rephrase it. The ex-elected queen who was elected at 16 is now 18, the senator representing her whole planet. I didn't think that stuff out very, very well. Because they still wanted it to be democracy.
Yes.
So I just the writing and now we did get, good thing we did get is the Dooku versus Yoda lightsaber battle at the end, and Anakin losing an arm, and that one lightsaber battle is the only thing pulling me up from the bulk point to a 5.
So a 5 from Loke. For me personally, Attack of the Clones is on its own. I would say it was probably one of my weaker choices. There's some cool things in it. The establishment of I'm forgetting, the clone planet.
El Camino.
I'm sorry.
El Camino.
Yes.
Camino. Yeah.
Camino. Yes. We got to see Jango Fett and a young Boba Fett. I thought it was pretty cool part of it. Like I said, I think on its own it is one of my weaker films, but I am also the Clone Wars fan, and I'm pretty sure, correct me if I'm wrong, that the Clone Wars is established canon. Correct?
Technically, yes.
And I think the Clone Wars show does a really good job of bridging episode 2 to episode 3, which I'm going to give it a bonus point for Filoni and Favreau's work, because I think that the Clone Wars adds so much to Attack of the Clones that I am going to give Attack of the Clones a 6 for a mean score of 5. Now, on to episode 3. As I was saying, this was my introduction to the series. So, Bold, where do you stand on the polarizing Revenge of the Sith?
Well, I definitely considered it a step up from Attack of the Clones. They both toned back, but also honed the comedy to, I think, a better level. Like, you guys know me. I love a good pun, but 3PO in Attack of the Clones was cringe, just straight cringe. The fact that they honed in Obi-Wan's, dadisms and just made it made him so much better. We get the Order 66, the tragedy of that, the scene, probably one of my favorite Star Wars scenes, the opera scene with the tragedy of Darth Plagueis.
Yes.
Ian McDermott puts on a masterclass of villainous acting right there. And yeah, in the polarizing aspect, I understand why people don't like it. For me, it was the best of the prequel trilogy by far. I'm giving it a 7.
7. Okay.
I think actually me and Bulg are pretty much right in line on this one. It is the best of the prequel trilogy, even without the corrections made in Clone Wars.
I now realize that retroactively my score for 1 was the
3 was
same.
the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll bring down my 1 to a 6.
Number 1 drops to a 6, which brings us to the main score of 6.33 repeating. What were you saying, Luke?
I even without the corrections, that Attack of the Clone or
Clone Wars.
Clone Wars makes to Anakin's character, which makes it less. With that factored in to his fall to the dark side, makes more. It's less like a light switch, more gradual incline. Even though his actual fall happened back when he killed the Sand People.
Yes.
Which is part of the problem was that wasn't very clear in the previous one, which is why we rated it so low. But so yeah, I give this one a 7 as well.
7 from Luke.
Yeah, that would make it the best of my scores from the prequels.
So, as I said, this was one of my pinnacle Star Wars experiences, and honestly, it has it has such an influence on pop culture, memes, and internet culture. I mean, just off the top of my head, I can, I have the high ground. We have Darth Plagueis. Those are the two that come to mind. There was another one.
Hello there.
Yeah, hello there. Yeah. It's had very influential, just a large sphere of influence. I thought that the other one I was thinking of was the My New Empire scene is another meme. Yeah, a largely memed scene.
The negotiator.
It is not without its faults. I will give you that. I think it is the strongest of the prequels. It is. I'm looking at the rest of my options, and I think I have to put my foot down and say it is probably my favorite Star Wars movie. That is unpopular, I'm sure, among some fans of the circle, but that is probably my most watched Star Wars, and I turn it on for when I'm feeling in a sci-fi mood. Because I can't see it, I'm gonna give it a 9.5. I can't. It's not a perfect movie. There's some cringe acting, but it is my favorite, and I will be giving it a 9.5 for a mean score of 7.83. We are through the first 3 movies. We are at technically our hour, so we are going to speed run the remaining ones. So I just need a score, a quick snippet, and we'll churn through the rest of these. So Bulk, episode 4.
No, you skipped
Classic
one.
Adventure.
Yeah.
Chronologically, you skipped 2 actually. Solo comes next, and then Rogue One before episode 4.
Okay. All right. Then give me your Rogue One, Bulk.
Rogue One is a lot better than I thought it was going to be, and has one of the best Vader moments ever.
Yes.
8 out of 10.
8 out of 10. Look.
This, in my opinion, is the best of the Disney Star Wars. It may actually be in competition for the best of all of Star Wars.
Really?
Yeah. I'm going to give it an 8.5
Okay.
because I need to leave room for number 1 and 2.
Rogue One's an interesting one to me because it is Star Wars without any, Jedi minus the Vader scene. I think there's a Force sensitive guy, but it's a step away from the mysticism of Star Wars, which some people really like. My father, the Hurricane, Rogue One is, I believe, his favorite Star Wars movie ever. And he went and saw Episode 4 at least 10 times in the theaters when it came out. Like I said, I am a fan of the mysticism aspect of Star Wars, but I really like what Andor did. Rogue One is going to be a 7 for me. All right. Does Solo come after Rogue One?
Technically, it's before.
Oh, I got the order a little mixed up, but sorry. All right.
Because Rogue One ends at the start of Episode 4.
4, yeah.
Okay.
And so Han Solo is already on Tatooine.
All right. I botched the order a little bit, but
Yeah.
give me your Solo ranking, Bull.
Middling movie, middling score, 5.
5. Look,
Unnecessary middling movie. I'm gonna give it a 4.
4. I thought it had a pretty good cast. Childish Gambino. I can't think of her name, but Daenerys Targaryen, actress. And they had
Emilia
introduced the
Clarke.
possibility of Darth Maul in it. I'm gonna also give it a 5. All right, now Episode 4. This is where we start getting into the big ones. Look, sorry,
Episode
Bull.
4, classic adventure. The introduction to Star Wars, what more can you say about it? 8 out of 10.
8 out of 10. Look.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to call. I'm gonna call it a 7.5.
Okay.
Mainly because of the multiple revisions.
Over the years.
Yeah, some of them are 8s, some of them are 7s, depending which
I got
revision you're watching.
All right, so
So
7.5 from low.
7.5.
New Hope. It is the pinnacle Star Wars. You have your adventuring crew. It's inspired so much. I'm gonna give it an 8. Episode 5, Bulk. That's the Empire Strikes Back. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. The Star Wars movie, 10 out of 10.
10 out of 10 from Bolg. Our first 10 of the board. Look.
This is the most well-made Star Wars movie, and it is the best written, probably, Star Wars movie. I'm knocking it off just because of the nostalgia factor, because the one that I'm going to give a 10 hasn't come up yet.
Okay.
But it is technically probably should have got the 10, but I'm giving it a 9 anyway.
9 from low. Empire Strikes Back. For me, I think it's a really good movie. Honestly, it's been a while since I've watched it, so I might give it a rewatch as part of my May the 4th celebration. Given where it is, I'm gonna give it. From what I remember, I'm gonna give it an 8.5. All right, Episode 6, Return of the Jedi.
Revanche du Jedi. Yeah, go with the original title. Fun movie. Ewoks were, even as a kid, were too cutesy. Though they were brutal little bastards. Still a great ending. Good focus on Luke's troubles with the dark side. I give it a 7.5 out of 10.
7.5 from Bull.
I am admitting biased. As a young kid, I was 12 when this came out, I think. If my math is correct, I don't remember what year, and we don't need to check that right now. But so there is some bias. This was my favorite Star Wars movie for a lot of years, and so I'm going to give it based on that, the 10 out of 10.
10 out of 10 from local.
Also the green
episode
nipple.
6.
Yeah.
This is the end of the first trilogy. I thought it wrapped things up really well while leaving space for expansion, which they've obviously done. I think it's a great story of good versus evil and redemption. I don't know if I'd call it redemption, but there's a redeeming factor that is accessible. I'm gonna give episode 6 a 9. Okay, so before we move on to episode 7, I need to make an announcement. A few months ago, I watched the first Rebel Moon, and I made a proclamation that I believed that Rebel Moon was better than any of the sequel trilogies. I am going to have to retract that statement because I have, 1, not rewatched it since, and 2, Rebel Moon 2 has just been sitting on my Netflix watch now, and I haven't even given it the time to watch it. So I am going to retract that statement. I believe Star Wars is the superior film series, even with the what I would call lackluster sequel. But with that disclosure made,
Big man of you.
I will ask Bull what he believes of episode 7.
Episode 7. I thought it was just as fun and a interesting reintroduction to characters we know and love. Interesting new characters that unfortunately will get a little squandered later on. I'll give this the same as episode 4, an 8 out of 10.
8 out of 10. Wow.
Yeah,
That's higher than I
we're
was
still in
expecting.
line at this point.
Next movie's going to change things drastically.
Little heavy on the member berries.
Yes.
But given the amount of time that came between the mainline series Star Wars movies, I think that it was not only justified, but necessary to bring back the audience to go heavy on the member berries.
Yes.
And I think had they not changed directors and their direction, I think we could have got a decent sequel trilogy from this stepping off point. And I'm going to say it now, this is the best of the sequel trilogy at an 8 out of 10.
I think I'm right on board with you gentlemen there. My issue with these sequels is that they, for whatever reason, thought it would be a good idea to bring in 3 different directors with 3 different ideas instead of one solid director that can carry a vision from start to finish.
The original trilogy had 3 different directors. I'm just saying.
Did it really?
Yeah.
I did not know.
Yeah.
I did not know that. All right,
But they were
They had
all
one plan.
written by Lucas. Yeah.
They were all planned by a single.
All right, that feels like that's
They were
pretty
planned in
good.
advance, which Abrams has a problem, as we've seen with things like Lost and some of his other stuff, where he plans it as he goes rather than having the whole thing laid out in advance.
Gotcha.
And so when somebody else has to take over from him, they're handed a bunch of mystery boxes that he's not handed them the answers to.
Gotcha. Okay, that does change my perspective on it a little bit.
A lot of people blame Rian Johnson for episode 8. I think Abrams holds as much of that blame as because of what he handed him.
Fair point. I thought there were some really interesting concepts in episode 8. The Finn being a defector. 7? There's a couple other things I go into for time. I am also going to give episode 7 and 8. I think it is the strongest of the sequels as well. Episode 8, Bolg.
This is where we're going to diverge a lot. I'm taking off a point for Canto Bight, and I am taking off a half point for misusing characters we had come to love in the first part of the movie. The first part of the sequel trilogy. I'm giving Rian Johnson, Big Dick Johnson, an 8.5 out of 10.
Really?
I
Interesting.
really enjoyed The Last Jedi.
This, like as he said, this is where we're gonna diverge.
Yes.
Um, I understand what Rain Johnson was trying to do. As a person who wants Star Wars, he's trying to correct what he sees as the problems of Star Wars, which, as we mentioned earlier, the fact that there's only one Jedi left, and if you want what makes Star Wars different, like I said before, is the Jedi. You need to, in order to go forward, you would need more of Force users.
Mhm.
And so he's the one. He's kind of introducing at the end of this movie that everybody, that the Force is for everybody.
Gotcha.
I don't like how he does it. I don't like the slow space chase. I don't like Canto Bite. I don't like the Finn Rose side relationship that springs out of nowhere.
Mhm.
I don't like a lot about this movie. And again, there's, like, I took points away from episode 1 because of the disappointment factor. That just I was hyped enough coming off of episode 1 that my expectations for episode 2 were crushed. I mean, coming off of episode 7, my expectations were so not met with episode 8 that I got to give this one a 4.
Gotcha. 4 from Will.
It's not the worst Star Wars movie, but it is pretty close.
So, episode 8 is a tricky one. As you can see, we've just had, a pretty big score differential. There's aspects of it I like, and there's aspects of it I don't like, and there's a lot of stuff I think could have done better. I'm going to deduct a point for Blue Milk. I think that's a fair point deduction. That was an unnecessary scene. That
I thought it was hilarious.
I was gonna say that's one of the better scenes of the movie. That's one of the more Star Wars scenes of this entire movie.
Okay.
And he did it just to show how much he didn't fucking care.
Okay.
And
Now
that's
that
the
I'm
problem,
thinking about
don't
it.
give a shit.
problem I have with it, though, is he didn't care, and you need to care about Star Wars.
There were some aspects I wish had been explored further, like I think the Sith Temple and the Sith holocrons would have been, and Rey's flirtation with the dark side and her, and her ancestry that we don't get into until episode 9. Episode 8 was with where Luke does his little Force duel with Kylo, correct?
Yep.
I like that. I did like that scene. I like the red dust battle scene. I don't know how I felt about it as an end for Luke Skywalker.
It wasn't an end for him, though.
Does he go? It's
He's
been
Force
it's been a
Ghost.
while since I watched this.
He's
Please
Force
refresh me.
ghosted, so technically, as a Force ghost, he is now immortal.
Yep.
Gotcha. Okay.
Technically.
There were aspects I liked, aspects I didn't like. I thought the slow chase scene was stupid. There was a better plot device, I believe, I believe a better plot device could have been written that your whole premise doesn't rely on them calling in backup to cut off your escape.
Yeah.
It just that aspect of it felt really poor writing to me. I'm gonna split the difference with a 6 for episode 8.
Yeah.
Now.
And just as a side note, I think with the death of Carrie Fisher, they should have written her death instead of having her Mary Poppins back.
That is,
and not killed Luke, and then saved Luke's death for episode 9.
I'm going to be
I think that-
deducting half a point for that scene because I had forgotten the Mary Poppinder.
It's not so much that the Mary Poppins part I don't have an actual problem with. I mean, she's She was trained as a Force user.
Did they? When did they train? Is that something that is established?
They show it in the flashback.
They showed in the flashbacks that Luke trained her before Kylo was born.
All right, I'll give you this half point back because I did not know that little piece
Yeah,
of
it's
lore.
not the fact that she Mary Poppins is. It's the fact that they knew by that point that with enough ahead of this movie, Carrie Fisher had died far enough ahead of this movie that they could have fixed, because they intended to kill one of them off in each of the films.
Mhm.
And they could have just killed her off there and killed Luke off in the next one, instead of the original intention was to swap. I mean, Luke was supposed to die in 2, and originally Leia was supposed to die at the end of the 3rd one. Because again, they don't like the original. The people in charge of the Star Wars franchise don't like the original trilogy heroes at this time, so they want to kill them all off.
All right.
But that's another.
Harrison Ford always wanted to die.
Yeah.
So surprised he came back for the next one.
Yeah.
Anything further on episode 8, gentlemen? Nope.
No.
All right, episode 9, Bolg.
4.5 out of 10. It just not satisfying. There are little moments peppered in here and there. Kylo Ren's little when he gets the lightsaber, that's fun. But we were teased a dark side Rey we never got. It was just a big disappointment. Not quite the worst of the series, but right up there.
See, I will say it is the worst of the series. I'll give it a point just for being technically Star Wars. I will give it a point for evil C-3PO. That scene was a little funny. Is there anything else I can give it a point for? I don't think so. That's a 2 out of 10?
2 out of 10. Wow.
I can't think of a third thing to give it a point for. I'm being
the
charitable.
only reason it got 4 points for me is because at least it was enjoyable. Like, there are parts where I could shut my brain off and just watch it. The opening was fun.
This is also the one where they do the forced teleport of the necklace. This is also the one where they do the fake out death for Chewbacca.
Yep.
This is also the one, I mean, where somehow the ancient Sith dagger lines up with the crashed Death Star pieces.
That's just Sith foresight.
Yeah. But
it's all magical mumbo jumbo, as Han Solo said.
Yeah.
Mystical mumbo jumbo.
It truly showed a lack of understanding of the Star Wars universe, in my opinion.
Yeah. Geez, for me, just to wrap it up real quick, it's got its faults, but I think it's more enjoyable. I don't know. Now I'm looking at my rankings here. I'm not sure where I would place it because it's got its enjoyable moments, but it's got some. I don't know if I was speaking on it here or our pre-show, but they released Fortnite was the method of how they released a rather large plot point for the movie, and I understand marketing, but my God, don't put a plot point in a game for children and a younger audience when you're trying to sell a movie to a period. Just don't do it, period. If
you do, you still got to include that plot point in your movie.
Yeah, right.
They just skip it entirely.
Somehow Palpatine Returned is the antithesis of the pinnacle of don't fucking do this in writing. It should be in my opinion in every creative writing class. Hey, don't fucking do this.
I'm gonna hold my tongue. I was about to blaspheme right in this stream.
I'm sorry, you're about to what?
Blaspheme.
Oh.
Overriding in the Bible, just having him come back for no good reason.
Jeez. You know,
Exactly.
there were aspects of it that
I'm going to
liked.
hell. It's fine. I accept it.
There were aspects I didn't like. I'm gonna split the difference between the two you again. I think I'm gonna go with a 3. And that, gentlemen, does conclude our ranking list for the theatrical Star Wars movies. I think, we'll probably get these listed in order and post them on the website or on Facebook. Our official, our average ranking list for the Star Wars films.
Maybe we can get the pirate captain to join in.
Oh yeah, we'll get his take before we post it. But besides that, I think I've covered all the points I want to talk about regarding Star Wars at this point in time. At least, referring to the main points of it and not intricacies that could be delved further into. Bolg, do you have anything further you would like to say on this wonderful nerd holiday?
No, just may the 4th be with you.
Always.
Anything to add to the final?
The answer to May the 4th be with you is not and also with you. The answer is always.
It is always.
Always.
Yeah.
Always.
Well, if there's nothing further to add from you gentlemen, I think we're going to
Well,
call it a wrap here.
Not May the 4th related, but I am planning to put out a little video with some things that I have seen in regards to Fallout that I feel like need to be addressed. Specifically things from the fandom. So
okay.
That should be coming soon. I'm just waiting for certain other people to give me their thoughts so that I can add those into an aggregate and kind of come up with a thing.
Gotcha. As far as recipes for everything, stuff coming up, I think we've got I can't think of anything. D&D 1, when is that supposed to come out?
September.
So a couple months, then we got a nice content generation coming our way to our viewers. But with that being said, say goodbye, Bolg.
Bye, Bolg.
Say goodbye, Loke.
See ya.
And may the 4th be with you.